How much time will I have?
How much time we're gonna have?
It's setting up. We'll go the full hour.
Go the full hour?
Yeah.
Somebody else said so, just try logging out while I get back in.
We should be live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean. Oh, is it not?
You're good. You're good.
Good. Through the magic and talent of Will and Katie, we're here. So we apologize. We are not sure what the heck was going on. Facebook was being a jerk. So, but we are here and we are live with Dee Silver and Warren Flax from Silver Brush. Dee Silver is the brush lady, and everybody knows Silver Brush. If you don't know Silver Brush, you're living somewhere worse than a rock. So she is going to be teaching us kind of the proper way to pick out water and fluid media brushes. She'll be featuring 6 of their amazing lines. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to them so that we can get started, because I know everybody's excited and everybody's been waiting really patiently for us to show up. So Warren and Dee.
Awesome. Amy, thanks so much for having us. Thanks everybody for your patience. You know how this world of technology that we live in these days, it's always amazing. But yes, I'm Warren Flax. This is my mom, Dee Silver, and we are Silver Brush, or 2 parts of it anyway. And I just thought I'd give a brief introduction and brag about my mother a little bit, if that's okay. Our family's been in the art materials industry now for more than 90 years. And in fact, my father, starting in the 60s, worked at a company called Martin F. Weber. It was F. Weber back then. They made some products you may very well be familiar with, including permalba white and terpenoid. And I used to work at Silver Brush myself when I was a teenager. I actually made permalba white and some of the other paint products. So if you're ever having a bad day at work, just thank the stars that you're not making paint today. That's what I always say, because that is definitely the hardest job that I've ever had, the hottest, the smelliest. It's just a tough job, Amy. So I grew up in this industry as well. My mother started working in the 70s for a number of companies, and as a sales representative, she represented paint, she represented brush, and so she was selling brushes starting then. And actually, our relationship with Jerry's goes all the way back to then, 1980, in fact. My mom working with Jerry Goldstein and selling him products going all the way back 40 years now, this relationship. And so what happened was in the late 80s, the brush company that my mother was working for went out of business. And so she said, I see an opportunity in the United States market for a high-end brush. And so I'm going to start this company myself. It was very uncommon back then for a woman to have a manufacturing business in this industry. So she definitely blazed that trail. Started this company in 1990. First shipment was in 1991. So I think officially on all of our documentation, we are since 1991. So coming up on our 30th year. And ever since then, she's been the brush lady, as you said, Amy. And so she is a requested speaker all around the world. Some of the most famous artists and most famous paintings have been done using Silver Brush. And I know my mom's going to feature some of those today. But I'll just point out a few. The official Vatican portrait of Pope John Paul II was done with Silver Brush. Princess Diana's official portrait was done with Silver Brush. US presidents and first ladies going all the way back to President Reagan and Nancy Reagan. So really, really proud of all those accomplishments, and always learning something every day that I'm around my mother. And so with that, I will introduce you to the brush lady so she can get started and I can stop talking. And here she is, Dee Silver.
Well, that was quite an introduction, wasn't it? Thank you very much for coming today. And I'm sorry we were a little bit late. As usual, we have tech problems. We all have that. I thought I'd start out with a couple of tips and tricks, how to take care of your artist brushes, and then we can move on from there. So one of the things I want to show you is a book that we have. This is a little booklet that we feature on our website. This is called Tender Loving Care of Artist Brushes. And I wrote this about 25 years ago, and it's probably one of the most sought after brochures that we have, but it's easy for you to get it today because you could find it online at silverbrush.com.
Or silverbrushcare.com.
Or silverbrushcare.com and go right to it. But what I've done is I've just given you lots of hints and ideas about how to take care of your artist brushes so that you get a feel that, okay, this is what I should be doing, and this is how we're going to make it last that much longer. We know that brushes are an expenditure for you, and we appreciate that very much. And this is a way to preserve and prolong the life of your brushes. So do download this, take a copy if you need it. If you want to have it on your phone, you can get it on your phone, and do learn something about taking care of your brushes. So let's begin. And I have a couple of things very quickly I'll show you because we've got a lot to get through, and I know we're kind of late, so I'll move this along. The first thing that I'd like to tell you about is the brush and the plastic cap. So a lot of you, you go to the store and you have a plastic cap on that brush head, and you look at it and you say, well, I'm going to preserve this, I'm going to keep it, I'm going to put it over here, and I'll keep it and I'll put it on the brush after I'm done so that it keeps the brush nice. What I want you to do is take this cap and throw it away. The only function of this cap is to preserve the brush head from the manufacturer to
So don't do that, what you just did.
That's exactly right.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. And the only reason why I did that is because the brush has been untouched and there's no water in it or anything like that. It's just a preservation for the brush head. It's a packing material, basically. So throw it away when you bring it home. And let me tell you why. I neglected to do this at one time. The reason why I don't want you to do that, to put it back on, is because when the brush head is wet and you put this back on, what could happen to the brush is that it might begin to mildew. And that's the last thing you want to deal with, because you think there's something wrong with the brush, and actually mildew does come off, but you don't want that aggravation. So take the cap and just throw it away. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is what happens when you get a nice soft brush like these wonderful goat hair mops that are extraordinary quality. Jerry's now not only carries this in sets, we do a number of sets for Jerry's, but they also carry it now in open stock. So we have two different.
What does open stock mean?
Open stock means loose. So you can buy one at a time if you'd like. So these are available to you. There are no finer mops on the market today. So if you're doing watercolors, if you're doing oil and you want to get a nice brush technique from these brushes, you can do that with these mops. Mops are very, very handy, and you really probably have a couple of them in your studio box, and you like to use them periodically. But the difference between the white and the black goat hair is that the white always stays soft and fluffy. The black gets a little bit stiffer. So I always recommend, when it's wet, of course. I always recommend the black goat hair for oil color because it's a little stiffer. So if you want to get the paint it off of the face of a portrait, you can do that. And you want to get the gloss off because paint tends to be very glossy. So you would want to do that with the black goat hair mop.
So who's that famous fella there?
All right, so let's start the famous paintings that we do have. I'm very proud of this painting. This is a painting of the late Congressman John Lewis. John Lewis, as you know, was in the House of Representatives for many years. He was representative in the state of Georgia. This is his official portrait, and that was done by an artist by the name of Michael Shane Neal. This is very significant today because this portrait was just accepted by the National Portrait Gallery, and it's quite a feather in Shane's cap, and as well as ours. We're very, very proud of it. This painting was done with our Grand Prix brushes, our Silverstone brushes, and Renaissance. I believe they're all available at Jerry's Artarama. And you could see if you buy those brushes, you can do fabulous portraiture too. I hope. So let me talk about how to groom these brushes. So I'm sure you've seen brushes that have shedding hair, and there's nothing more annoying than that, than having shedding hair. So what I do before I start a brush like this, especially because goat hair is so very soft. Goat hair is very, very soft, which is what mops are made out of. Ours are anyway. There are other brushes on the market from my competitors, and they don't compare to these, but they're very, very soft. And what happens is there has to be a gluing inside here. We call it an epoxy barrier within here, and it has to capture all of the hair that's in the head. You see, it's very, very important to capture all the hair, but it's very, very soft. So one of the things that I would recommend that you do when you begin to paint and before you actually start to paint is do this. This is called knifing. Now, what am I using? I am using a simple plastic butter knife, and I'm using the back. You see the back? It's nice and flat over here. It's very important that you use just the back. You don't want to use the front because that's sharp and you won't want to cut the hair. So use the back and just lightly pull the hair and see if there's any loose hair. And you know, sometimes people go with a tweezer and it's very annoying to get the hair out of the painting. If you do that, it stops that from happening. And you could do it with all of the, one hair just came out of there. You can do it with all of the goat hair brushes and just make sure you get any loose hair that's around, and that'll come right out. Makes life much, much nicer when you do that. So I'm going to do it with the black goat hair also and see if any hair comes out. I doubt it. But
There's one. I see one.
oh, there you go. Minuscule. There you go. There's one. Okay, but that's going to happen with these light goat hair brushes. And same thing, you've got an epoxy barrier here to hold the head right in that ferrule, another one in the middle so we keep another barrier so the moisture doesn't go in, and a third barrier to make sure that it doesn't touch the top of the handle. So I'm sure that you never do this because I'm sure you're very responsible and you would never put your brushes like this in for storage when you're through painting with them. What happens then if you do that and they're wet is that the moisture goes inside the ferrule and starts to erode the epoxy barrier that's inside the ferrule. Well, that becomes very problematic because, excuse me, once it starts to erode, it might actually start to drip down onto the handle after it gets through all the other barriers and crack the handle. That's the last thing I'm sure you want to happen. So make sure that when you're done with your brushes, you put them flat, or you even put them like this is. You see how this is directed downwards? So the moisture flows out. And that's very, very important. That way the moisture flows out and you don't have the moisture going into the head. I'm sure you've also, if you have experience with brushes, you've also had the problem where paint goes into the ferrule and the brush has problems going back and forth. That's another victim of putting brushes like this when you're letting them dry. The paint flows down into the ferrule and you have all that paint inside the ferrule and you can't get the brushes to start moving. So I do recommend that you put the brushes flat when you're done drying, or even better, if you can get it at an angle and let it dry like that. Preserving the brushes is what it's all about. That's what our little tender loving care is all about. And your brushes will last that much longer if you take good care of them. So it's really important that you take these tips and start doing that. So these are our goat hair mops. We have them in oval, we have them in round, in both white and black goat hair, and we also have our new fan blender, and that's a wonderful blender. And if you're doing any kind of detail work where you want to get the shade off of a certain part, like under Congressman Lewis's eyes, you'll see that you would get right into it and be able to take that right off. So that's the great thing about this unique shape. So this goat hair mop is extremely durable, very long lasting, and soft. That's the one thing you're going to love about it. It's extremely soft. So it's not going to eat into the paint. It's just going to ride over the paint. So that is our mops, and I have to move on to the next series, but these are marvelous brushes. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to show you some strokes also with some of our other brushes. So this is a line that we introduced within the last 2 years, and we're very excited by it. This is our Silver Silk 88 series, and you can see it comes in lots and shapes and sizes, and I'll go over some of them with you. It also comes in both long and short handle. A long handle I'm going to use at the easel. You'll see you could use it at the easel, and they just are fantastic for any kind of fluid acrylics, any kind of acrylics. We also have people using them in watercolors. And these are very, very special series. Because of the type of hair it is, it actually holds more color than a normal synthetic fiber. We do something different at Silver Brush.
that chart you want to show?
I would like to show this chart. Absolutely. We do something different at Silver Brush than all the other manufacturers. So this is the typical extruded filament of synthetic hair. Notice it's all exactly the same size. It's all exactly the same shape and all the same size. Well, that does not make a great artist brush, because what happens is there's no friction holding the moisture on each one of the filaments. So what I've come up with years and years and years ago is different size filaments to hold the moisture on each one of the filaments. So what happens is you have friction, and this friction is what holds the color on the filaments itself. So instead of having a puddling, which, let me show you this. So instead of, some of my competitors have brushes, you see there's no puddling over here. And if the brushes were all the same size filament, you'd have terrible puddling. But notice how nicely that controls the color. And it holds it right on the filament, and it does not flow off the filament. It does exactly what I'm asking it to do. So that's one of the major differences between these two. Another thing that the silver silk is, and this is the density of the filament, this is a very specially treated filament. It has grooves around each one of the filaments. Why is that important? Well, what happens with a paint like fluid acrylics has a little bit of tackiness, and it has a little bit of, that acrylic base. So I don't want it to flow off like watercolor, and I don't want it to hold like crazy with acrylic color. So here I've got some fluid acrylic, and I wanted to show you. So this is my fancy palette, and I have watercolors here, and I have more watercolors, and I have fluid acrylics here, and that's a fluid acrylic. I have gouache over here and acrylics over here. I'm going to try my fluid acrylic, and I'm going to show you how beautifully this paints with silver silk. Look how nicely that holds the color. It paints beautifully. You don't have any kind of difficulty with coverage or anything like that. I love this series for fluid acrylics. I don't think there's a better brush on the market. I really don't, because it just keeps holding the color. It comes off slowly, and it does its job. It's a very unusual thing for a brush to behave like that, and to be able to do all the different kinds of strokes that you can get with this Silver Silk 88. By the way, everything I'm showing you, you can buy at Jerry's. So when we're done today, you are more than welcome to go and purchase these brushes right from Jerry's Artarama. Just want to make that perfectly clear. So as I said earlier, this is a line, the Silver Silk 88, with tons and tons of unusual shapes. Look at this one. Isn't that fun? So this is called a soft curve. The soft curve has on one side, I made it wet before, and I was playing with it. The soft curve has a curve on one side and a square on the other. So you can get, let's do some other colors. So you can get a fantastic shape. And remember, I'm a businesswoman and not an artist, and that's why I'm not doing the portrait that goes into the National Portrait Gallery. I'm just puddling around here. But this is a fantastic brush that you can also double load. So let's show you the double loading. And there you have some double load. It is just does its job. And if you want to get a different technique, notice how nicely that double load comes out. You're going to be able to do that with our soft curve, but that's not all that we have. We have a number of other brushes that, of course, rounds and flats and brights, but we also have this wonderful dagger striper, excuse me. We have a dagger striper that can't be more fun to use. I'm going to use this in fluid acrylic also, and I'll show you the different strokes that I make with that. Dagger stripers are very unique because you can do lines with them, you can do petals with them, you can do tendrils with them, buttons and bows and ribbons and anything else that you want to make with these. This is a great, unique brush for that. And look at that kind of thing. I really have a good time with this particular brush because it's just so versatile. And here it is in a double load. So that's our dagger striper. Silver Silk 88 has lots and lots of different shapes, as I mentioned. This is a cat's tongue. Cat's tongue is become extremely popular. We're coming out with these in our Ruby Satin as well as our Bristle-On series. And but this is a very unique shape. Also, again, I'm going to use, well, this time I'm going to use gouache because I give you a different color. This is gouache. And we all know that that gouache is a transparent watercolor. But what I like about the cat's tongue is that you get these marvelous little petals. So look what I'm doing. It looks like a little flower, doesn't it? Well, guess what? They always use cat's tongues in duck decoy work, any kind of wild fowl, those feathers. So if you need to make feathers for animals, if you need to make any kind of ornaments or something like that, that you want a neat, unique shape, this is perfect for that. And this is the cat's tongue. We have it in a couple of sizes in the Silver Silk. And look at the fun flowers I'm doing there. And what I'd like to make sure that you know is that I really have no talent for what I'm doing for painting, but it just shows you anybody, you know, with a little bit of desire can have a lot of fun doing this. I love these brushes. These are extremely long lasting. They're very durable. They have, as I said, a triple epoxy barrier inside a nickel plated ferrule, which makes it extremely strong. And you can have these a lifetime. You really can. Let me just do this a little bit and take a little bit of paint off of here. Then I have also in this series, another shape that's called ultra round. Notice the long length out and the nice little fat belly on that. That's going to hold a lot of color. And if you're doing line work, if you are doing, let's see, I'm going to do this with more fluid acrylics. If you're doing line work, if you wanted to really hold a lot of color, this is a beautiful brush for that. The artist, Tom Lynch, if you know Tom Lynch, he loves ultra rounds. He loves ultra rounds in our another series that we do, and he loves this one as well because he can get those long lines he likes to do in all of his gorgeous watercolor paintings. He's a very talented artist, and we're thrilled that he's part of what we do. So this is our ultra round. Again, all available at Jerry's Artarama. The Silver Silk also comes in long handles. I do want to make sure I mention this to you. This is our little mop brush. This is a little white goat hair brush. Notice how teeny that is. And for those of you that like to do a little decorative painting or detail painting of any kind, this is a perfect little brush for you. We're coming out with this brush in 4 different sizes in a brush set. I'm sure Jerry's will have that up on their website as soon as we make it available to them. And this is very priced right, very, very reasonable prices on all of these. And I know they do some discounting. And this is a brush that, again, it's going to last a lifetime, and it's going to be very versatile in your repertoire of different things that you have in your studio. So these are our long handle brushes. And we have some very unique shapes in the long handle that are kind of exciting. So we have it in, of course, flats and brights and rounds, but we also have it in an extra long filbert. So if you're doing any kind of portraiture, if you need to get into detail with that round head, this is a perfect brush for it. This right here, you use it on my easel over here, but I'm going to just sit here right now. And you'll be able to use, I think I've already used this one, yeah. So I'll use this. This is, I think I'll just use this with some watercolor. Let's give some watercolor a try here. Make that a little bit wetter. And this is some watercolor. Not to say you do watercolor on an easel, you don't. Obviously, you have to do that flat. But I just wanted you to see that how wonderful this holds color. So, you know, and it's going to, because of the longer head, you're able to get very, very far away and get the detail and make sure that you cover all that color, that surface. Here you go. There you go. And this is, I love working with the extra long filbert because it really covers a lot of surface that that I need for it to cover, and it gets into that detail painting that we have to do. Silver Silk also has this great, well, so let me show you this as well. This is a liner. The liner is very unique in a long handle. There are very, very few liners that are in long handle, and that is a wonderful signature brush. You see that? And if you're at an easel, you can do that. That's my signature. But you can also do this tendrils and lines and anything else you need a very, very small line for. And I'm sure that all of you need to have that periodically. Very good buy, once again, very unique shape. This is our, we have this in 2 sizes in the Silver Silk 88. This is a wide wash, and you'll be able to put a lot of color down and get a lot of moisture on the surface. Let me put a little bit over here. Now I can always turn this over. So I'm just going to put some color down on the background, and I could use this for any of the background gels and mediums from some of those great paint companies, and put that down on the back of the canvas or on the back of any kind of paper or anything like that. And I can get that background and it would dry, and then I can put my painting on the front of it. I love painting with these brushes. I find them extremely comfortable, and I think you will as well. So that's our Silver Silk 88. And I'm going to move on to the next one and tell you about this as well.
Oh, we got some questions.
Some questions? Yeah.
We had a question from Laura actually on the Silver Silk line. Were any of those brushes ones that would be good for stenciling on canvas or mixed media paper at all?
Yes,
The shape?
absolutely can. You absolutely can use that. It's not as stiff as the Bristolon. I actually think our Bristolon would be better, or ruby satin, but these absolutely would do very well. As a matter of fact, I had a stencil over here before. I don't know what I did with it, and I could show it to you if I had it here. You absolutely can use it for stencil. It's, yeah, I probably put it over there. I probably put it over there. You absolutely can use it for stenciling. And you would be able to put, what stencils are is just, you just put that down and you would be able to paint right over it and get that color right on it. Yeah, that's all right. But you absolutely can use it. It's a little on the soft side, but it really depends on the paint that you're using. If you're using an acrylic, you absolutely can. Here's an acrylic over here. I'm going to use an acrylic for a second so that you can see. Here, this is an acrylic. And you can see you can paint right on that. And what stencils are is basically doing something like this, where it's covering a section of the surface, and you don't want to cover that, so you've got that around that. So you absolutely can use this for stencils, but my feeling is that you'd be better off with our ruby satin or our Bristolon series. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Any questions you have, please shoot them at me. I'd be happy to answer
Let me ask
that.
you one more question real quick about the goat-haired mops. I had multiple questions where viewers wanted to know if the goat-haired mops would work well with acrylics, or if they're recommended for acrylics, being a natural hair brush.
Well, that's a very good question, Amy, and I neglected to talk about that. The thing about natural hair brushes, you can use it for any medium. The only thing I always recommend is that if you put this in oil color, leave it in oil color, because you then have solvent in the filament. But you can use this in watercolor, you can use this in acrylic color, you can use this in oil color, you could use it in any medium. If you clean, of course, when you clean up, you don't want to use a solvent, you want to use an odorless solvent. I always recommend to artists that they buy it from an art supply dealer, just like Jerry's Artarama, because it's a much better quality than something you get at a big box store. But you can use our goat hair mops in any media. You really can. Remember though, if you're using them in oil color, leave them in oil color. If you're using them in a water-based material, which means gouache, acrylics, fluid acrylics, watercolors, leave them in the water-based material. That's the best thing for the brush, okay? And when you're drying them, make sure you dry them flat. All right?
Perfect.
Anything
Thank you.
else?
So far, that's it. I'm keeping an eye on the questions.
Okay, I hope somebody's left out there. Probably, they
Oh,
probably
no,
all
they
left
are.
to go to dinner.
Everybody's excited that we're live, so we're good.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to talk to you then about our Silver White series. Silver White series has been in our line since the very beginning when I started the company back in 1990. And line, I feel, that does not get the kind of recognition it deserves. It is just this wonderful material. It's a very, very good value brush, and it lasts forever. Clearly, I've been using these a very long time, and I haven't put them into alcohol to take the color out. I've been very neglectful of my brushes. So don't feel bad if you're neglectful of your brushes. But one of the things it does, it just holds a huge amount of color. So a lot of watercolorists prefer the Silver White because it does a wonderful job being very, very technical. And it gets into the details, and you can actually really control the brush. That's the thing about this series. It controls the brush beautifully. We have this in both long and short handle, and I know that Jerry's Artarama carries both. And this is just one of those series that is just a very practical series that you want to have in your studio. And you probably will go for it over and over and over again, and you'll make your magic mark with this particular series. Look how beautifully that comes back to its tip. It doesn't lose its tip, it doesn't lose the paint, and it holds it forever. Remember what I said before about multi-diameters. This has between 6 and 9 different diameters in the head, so it holds the moisture very, very well. So look at that. Look how nicely that's doing. And it's still painting. That's the original dip that I did it in. So Silver White is one of these little known series that we sell a tremendous amount of, and it's just one of those really great utilitarian brushes. And if you're starting to paint and you want to paint not spending an awful lot of money, I would definitely recommend this series because it's just going to last so much longer. You know, when you spend probably in our line, you're going to spend an extra 50 cents or $1 or $1.50, maybe even $2 for a brush, but you might have that brush for 3-5 years or maybe even longer. It's very different than a lot of other brushes that are on the market. We really work very hard to make it a better quality. We're not perfect. I'm not saying we are perfect, but we really do try and come out with each particular brush to be very, very special and a very, very high quality. And we really want to give you a lot of bang for your buck. You know, not everybody was born with a silver spoon in their mouth. A lot of us came from the Bronx. And, you know, we understand that you have a pocketbook that has to be, you know, dealt with, and you want to make sure that you're getting the most for your money. There is nothing like this brush. There really isn't. Look how beautiful it does. It really does. And I'm still just using the round. I'm not using anything else. This is one of those utilitarian sizes, an 8 or a 10. This is a 10. And you just need it for your box, and you just keep on working with it. And, you know, a brush like this maybe is $6 or $7, but, you know, with Jerry's discounting, they're fantastic, you know, to their customers, and you'll be able to get this for a very, very good price.
So how can people know that that's going to be the case of quality with a brush like Silver White that looks so similar to so many other white Taklon brushes that are on the market?
That is a really good question. That really is. And I can understand the confusion because they do all look alike. And everybody is touting their brushes as the best and the this and the that. It is very difficult. What I can tell you is that we use multiple diameter filaments in ours, triple epoxy barrier within the ferrule. This is a nickel plated brass ferrule.
Why does that matter, nickel plated brass ferrule?
Well, if it's not, well, aluminum. If it's aluminum, then it's a very soft material and it bends, and you don't want that. There, you know, some of the kids' brushes you've seen, you know, they're just very, very inexpensive, and you see that the ferrule will bend. The other thing that is really important with this is that it's really well crimped, so the moisture does not flow into the ferrule. That's very, very important. So it, you know, there is a huge quality difference between this particular brush and the next factory, I should say. This is our script liner. Script liner means that it's a longer length out. Notice how long that is. A monogram liner is a shorter length out. And this again is a signature brush. I'm going to put it in some acrylic over here. And again, I'll write your name. And one of the nice things about this is that you'll be able to do flowers, be able to do petals, be able to do anything that you're looking for. This holds a lot of color, and it's I have to get a paper towel. It holds a lot of color, and it's always going to go right back to its original shape. Notice the nice point that's on there, and I've been using this quite a while. Always goes back to its original point as well. That's right. What's engineered that way.
Probably want to do one more and then move on to the next.
One more and go on to the next. Okay. So this is, I'm just going to show you quickly the stroke brush. This is the silver white stroke. And what this does is lays down a lot of color. So I'll do it with gouache. This is gouache, and I'll use gouache for this. And look how nicely that holds that down. Now this comes in multiple sizes. This happens to be the 3/4. It comes in 1/2, 3/4, and 1 inch. And notice how nicely that holds the color also. So it's a pretty exciting series. We love this series. And I hope you do too. Try one the next time you place an order with Jerry's, and you'll see that how much you love these brushes. I do. And I've been using them a very long time, and they really just work beautifully. All right, let me move on. I know that a little short on time there. And remember, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm also going to show you our Manza series. Manza is a very, very unique series. It's a synthetic mongoose hair. It's no natural hair because mongoose hair is actually on the endangered species list. So we use a synthetic mongoose, but notice how short the length out is. You see how short the length out is? This comes in, by the way, very, very tiny sizes. This comes to a size 2, I believe, or a 0, so that you can, if you're doing bird beaks or any kind of feathering or anything like that on animals, this is a perfect brush series for that. Notice how short the length out is. Why is that important? Well, if you're a decorative artist and you want to do dry brush blending, this is a perfect brush for you. I'm going to do that. This is a little bit of fluid acrylics. It's very, very controlling. Remember, the shorter the length out of the hair, the more controlling. The longer the length out, less controlling. So this is the short length out, and I am able to get right in there and get very, very close to the edge over there and get my painting done. This is in the whole series. It's a very short length out. It actually is very unique in the marketplace. And because of the filaments, it will last forever. It's extremely durable, very, very long lasting. You really get a lot of bang for your buck with the Manza series. It's just this extraordinary quality. Again, it's a very short length out. It's a synthetic mongoose. And I'll show you our angle in this. Notice how short the hair is on the angle brush.
So what was the benefit of mongoose hair?
Mongoose hair was actually very nice because it had a nice flip and snap to it, and it held a lot of color. It was a very nice brush. I've actually been to India. I don't understand why it's on the endangered species list, but it is, so we don't work with anything that's endangered. So it has a very, very nice snap and a holding capacity. This does too. This is probably the nicest mongoose synthetic that's on the market today. Very short length out over there, and you will be able to do any kind of the drawdowns that you like to do. I'm going to put it in some acrylic color, and things like lines, and if you wanted, this is like the top of a barn, and you'll be able to do a lot of tight control with this, a lot of tight control. And, you know, we've had people paint magnificent birds with this particular series because birds are very, very small, and they have a lot of detail to it. And you've got to get very, very close to that. And this is the perfect series for it. Manza is very unique in the marketplace. I believe we're the only ones to have anything with a very short length out like this. and it's very, very durable. So if you want to brush to last 10, 15, 20 years, you will spend a little bit more for the Manza series, but it's going to last you a lifetime. It really will. There's very little.
We have people come up to us at trade shows all the time with their brushes that are 20 years old, showing them to us. Their handle's worn, but the brush is still performing
very, very well
for that artist, you know, for over 2 decades. So that, you know, with proper care, that's absolutely doable.
Yeah. This is, again, a very, very fine detail brush. You'll be able to do any of the lines that you'd like to do with this series, and you'll be able to do any kind of feathering or anything like that. Here you go. This is a very, very high quality brush. I think it's one of our silent, really fabulous series that people don't know a lot about, but I did want to bring that up today because I think it's so special. This is also a very short, notice the short filbert that's on there. This is great for feathers, bird feathers of any kind. I'm doing that. That's, I'm using fluid acrylic with this, and you'll be able to do feathering with that, a little wider than the cat's tongue. And that's what I'm doing with that. But of course, you will also be able to use this for portraiture or, you know, anything like that. So again, a very short length out, you're going to get short strokes on that, but you're going to be able to control your strokes like nothing else that's on the market. All right. And that's our Manza. That's our filbert in the Manza. And this is the, actually, this also comes with a fan. And I don't have a copy of the fan here, but it also comes with a fan brush. I apologize for not having it here. But it also comes with this nice, I think this is called a glazing brush because it's a little longer length out, more like a bright. And it's also very, very a high performance brush. And you will be able to do all kinds of drawdowns with these as well. This is an exciting series. If you buy one brush that you think you need to control whatever it is you're doing, this is the perfect series for you. So you know those little, I think they're called ATV cards. They're very little, very small cards. You probably would be well served to buy the Manza series for those cards. Okay, moving on. We have 2 more series I'm going to cover today. And well, we had a lot to cover. You know, we really had a lot to talk about. And we're going to talk about our Quill series. The Quills are just 3 different series that are very, very exciting. We sell a boatload of them through Jerry's Artarama. They come in squirrel, a squirrel blend. They come in goat hair, and they come in a soft taklon. I'm going to demonstrate with the soft taklon because this holds so much fluid that people think that this has to be a natural hair, and as a taklon, it just holds a huge amount of moisture. You know what? I think I'll use that in acrylic. This is an acrylic paint, and let me just get that nice and wet. This is a very thirsty little brush, and notice all that color I'm getting on there. Look at that. It holds a huge amount of color. So if you're covering a very large space, you'd be well served to get one of these quills. This is the taklon, as I said, the taklon quill, and it really is fabulous. It holds so much color. Very exciting brush. But we also have our goat hair brush, and that again is very, very soft. And you would use this for blending. So you would use this for blending, and you'd be able to put color over something else. Now suppose, oh, I got something in there I shouldn't have done. Okay. Well, okay. So what I wanted to show you is how softly it goes over other colors and how you'll be able to blend it out on the background. And that is the goat hair blender. It does its job. And those of you that use a lot of watercolor brushes would really be in love with this series. And that is the goat hair blender. There it is. Now, the squirrel hair is much, much more absorbent. And this is a blended squirrel hair. It is not 100% squirrel hair any longer. and what we try to do is make it price sensitive. It really becomes very exorbitant when it's when it's all squirrel hair. So this is, again, this is a fluid, I believe. This is a fluid. No, this is the gouache. And we can use the gouache and notice how much more color you have with the squirrel hair. It's going to hold a huge amount of color. And that's the nature of this particular series. It really does hold a huge amount of color. These are all available through Jerry's Artarama. This is 100% squirrel hair, as I said. And
well, that one's now a blend as well.
this is blend. Yes, you're right. It's a little late for me. I'm not used to being up so late. So this comes in on multiple sizes. I think up to a size 80. I think that's what this is. And as I said, it's all available through Jerry's. Making up some time here. The last one I'm going to bring up is our Black Velvet series. Those of you that know Silver Brush, many of you know us through Black Velvet. This has been on the market for many, many years. It was one of the original brushes that I designed. I wanted a brush that holds a fabulous amount of color, but you can control with it, but it's going to hold so much color that you'll be able to put it all over the surface. Now, there are some fabulous artists out there who use only Black Velvet. And I just wanted to bring one to your attention who is so talented.
You're doing well on time, by the way.
Okay. I do want to show you one. This is an artist. Her name is Soon Warren. And when we come out with our new Black Velvet sets, you're going to see all of her artwork on our sets because we're so proud of her.
On the packaging.
On the packaging. Notice how beautifully she does detail and everything. You can see her on YouTube. She is just a wonderful, wonderful artist.
How do you spell her name?
Her first name is Soon, S-O-O-N, and Warren, W-A-R-R-E-N. Easy enough. And this is one of her paintings that she did a long time ago. And she did it all, of course, with Black Velvet brushes. Notice all the detail that's in here. She was able to do all of that with just a couple of brushes that she uses. And she's been using our brushes for 30 years. And notice all the detail that's over here. Notice all that beautiful detail. I don't know if there's a lot of other brushes that can actually give you that kind of detail, all of that beautiful artwork. To say I wish I could do that myself would be an understatement. But she's really a treasure and a very talented person, obviously. So this is a Black Velvet series. This is a Black Velvet brush. You're going to see that there's a real marked difference than anybody else's brush that imitates us on the market because it's just such a unique blend of synthetic hair and squirrel hair. So what you get is this wonderful snap. Notice that wonderful snap. You can't do that with most other brushes. You certainly can't do it with 100% squirrel hair, but because we put a certain amount of synthetic in here, you get that marvelous snap. So it always goes back to its original shape. And if you're having issues with that, just go like that. It's easy enough. If you have too much fluid on it and you're not getting a snap, just do it with your hand like that. Notice that beautiful point. And I've been demonstrating with this for about 3 years, this particular size, because I like to use a bigger size. So notice that beautiful shape, that nice point that it comes back to. Let's use it in watercolor because that's what it's originally meant for. And
what else could Black Velvet be used for?
Well, Black Velvet is also very, very good for silk painting. So if you're using silk dyes, any kind of dyes whatsoever, Black Velvet will work very, very well for that because you almost need like a sponge to paint with. You need almost like a sponge. So you need something that's extremely absorbent and you're going to be able to put all this color down on the surface. Notice how I'm getting.
You've got watercolor, you mentioned inks and dyes.
Right.
And then what about gouache?
Yes, you can use gouache. I would not use it in fluid acrylics. I would not use it in fluid acrylics because I think that's got too much stickiness to it. It's got that acrylic on it. However, we have a number of people that work with us and are educators, and some of them use Black Velvet with fluid acrylics. It's not what it's recommended for, but if you feel comfortable doing that, I certainly don't want to tell you what to do. I do want to tell you what to do, but you know, as soon as I say you can't do it, everybody does it. So it doesn't do me any good. It's like children,
What,
yeah, especially teenagers. Yes, yes, yes.
what's the concern with using a black velvet brush in a fluid acrylic?
Well, I don't think it's going to pull out what you need it to. I don't think it's going to give you the kind of surface painting that you need it to. So, you know, this is like painting with a sponge. So you need something much lighter, like the silk dye and of course watercolor. Notice how much paint I'm putting on here. I'm putting an awful lot of paint on here. It's a very, very high concentration.
Warren, let me interject for just a minute, and because I see a lot of people asking about acrylic with on this as well. I feel like the biggest kind of danger to a beautiful brush like that, that's got synthetic and the natural hair, is when you use acrylic. If you are not super good about rinsing between every little bit of picking up paint, is you will get acrylic that goes into those pores in the natural hair, and slowly over time that will build up and you just can't get that out. It's not going to stick to the synthetic, but when you've got a brush that's got that beautiful shape where you want that spring and snap, over time with the acrylic building up on the natural hair, it's going to affect the performance of the brush.
You're right, Amy. It is going to affect the performance, but that's not the only thing I don't like about acrylic with this particular series. The other problem with this particular series is because it is so thick, acrylic, unless you water it down,
Right.
like a watercolor, it can actually tear the hair.
Okay.
Okay. That's a very important ingredient that everybody, you don't shake.
That's what I was going to say. Yes,
Okay.
tear the hair.
Yeah.
That's our biggest fear.
That is our fear.
Yeah.
It's a very fine and quite
Right.
honestly expensive brush.
It is.
We want you all to have it for very, very long time, and we'd hate to see that happen.
Yeah. Now, let me just tell you about these brushes. Take good care of them. Make sure you, like all the brushes, I want you to make sure that the head is flowing down and you don't have moisture build up. We have people using this brush for 10, 20 years. That's how well it is. It'll stay. That's how durable it is. But you have to take very, very good care of it, and it will continue to paint. And all of our brushes will last that long, but you have to continue to take very, very good care of it. And it's a problem if you do. I'm not showing you anything with acrylic because I'm very concerned about it, but I do use it with gouache. This is gouache over here, and I will use that also. Gouache is, as I said, is just an opaque watercolor, and notice how much color that's going to use. It brings to the surface. So if you need to really put down a lot of color and you want it to do the job for you, this is the series to do it. Lots of imitations out there, but it can't compare in quality, and certainly not durability, not longevity. It just won't. It's as simple as that. So you keep on buying that brush over and over and over again. And by the time you've bought it, the same brush from my competitor 3 or 4 times, you've more than paid for the Black Velvet series. So that's a round. A number of years ago, I came out with it in very large sizes. This is 16. It actually goes up to a size 20 and around now. And for the new year, I'm introducing a size 0 in the round. So that's brand new also. Very good buy on that. And I'm very excited about it. I think that the size 0 in the round is something that people have wanted for a very, very long time.
We've got somebody that's asked how they would work with casein paints. I would think that would probably be, it's just a pigment with a milk base is the binder.
What's the name of it?
The caseins, like that Richardson makes, where it's a milk binder.
I would think it would do okay with it. I would like to get a sample of the paint before I would actually recommend it. You know, these brushes start, I don't know, probably about $30, $25, $30.
Right.
So, you know, I think experimenting with a medium like that might be a little risky. And I'm not going to say that it's something that I would recommend because I'm not familiar with it. But it is something that, you know, if your artist feels comfortable with it, they can try it. But remember, we're not recommending it.
Right.
So, yeah, because I'm familiar with casein.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they're asking about that and like egg tempera, which are water based. So they're
Egg temper is not a problem. Egg temper should do very well with this. When I was in college, I took an art class and we made our own egg tempera. And it absolutely would work with that. That's just a water base with an egg for coloring. And that is something that you will be able to do. Now, this is a very, very unique shape. This is our oval wash brush. This is something that I've had in the line for years. We used to work with a wonderful artist. Her name was Betty Denton, and she used to make these stunning little flowers with this particular brush. And now Arlene Paget is just a magnificent artist, and she does an awful lot of artwork with using black velvet. And I'll show you some of her work. And all of these were done with black velvet brushes. I wish I could say I taught her something, but I didn't. I just taught her about brushes, as I always do with our artists. And this is something that she uses strictly black velvet brushes with this. Although I know she likes Manza an awful lot, and I believe she did the scrubbing down here with the Manza, and she was able to do a lot of detail work with them as well. Notice how nice this is. So she was very generous, and she lent us these paintings. We are supposed to send them back, but I haven't let them go yet. So here we have, she does a lot of, this, you know what this is a spackle painting. So she takes the brush and she pulls it back, and that's how she gets a lot of the spackling. But notice, come close, and notice how beautifully she gets the veins and the flowers
And again,
and
this is
the lines.
Arlene Paget
This
in
is
Florida.
Arlene Paget. She's in Jacksonville, Florida, extremely talented individual. Notice how beautifully she does the leaves and the petals, the stamen in the middle of the flower. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful rendition that she does with black velvet brushes. This too, these are some wonderful pairs that Arlene's done. And again, using her black velvet brushes, because I know those are her favorite. And she's had these, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay.
Same brushes, she keeps using the same ones. Very, very, very rarely does she have to replace them. But notice how she gets the little speckle all over. She does some wonderful things with petals. And this too is something that she's done. This is always like one of my favorite paintings. I'm not sure, it kind of reminds me of, I love summertime and pots near the pool and the garden work and all of that. And she's doing this with black velvet too. She uses the little rounds for over here. She uses the cat's tongue for over here. And she's painting down here with the cat's tongue as well. She also uses some of the square washes that we have. And notice how nicely she has done that, again, with black velvet brushes, uses Manza as well, and some silver white. So some grasses. She lives near the beach, so she's able to go and do some plein air painting. And there you have some beautiful beach painting. Notice the grasses all over and the little speckle all over. It's beautifully done. Also, little lighthouse in the background and little birdies. Look at the little birdies over there. So, these are some of the things. Look at that beautiful painting. I think that's a hibiscus, if I'm not mistaken, very popular in Florida. Notice how she's gotten all the stamen in there and all of the exacting detail, all of that. Now, I don't think she just uses black velvet with this. I think she's using a couple of our other brushes, but predominantly that's what she uses. So you get a nice, view of some of the other things that people are doing with the brushes. Obviously, she paints a lot of flowers. We've got a nice bird over here. And, this is, she does a lot of instructions. I know that. And this is the kind of thing that, that you too can do with our brushes. So I'm available for questions. So
How we do, Amy? We're okay on time?
We're doing well on time. Hold on for just a second. I'm looking at the time that we've got here. We've got, we had a viewer, Tina, earlier that asked when we were kind of done with talking about mops, but just an additional kind of follow-up question that she had. She said, since mops are soft goat hair, won't the hair clump together when wet?
they actually will. They actually will. But what you want to do with them is go like this to get them to go out. And I'll make it wet for you. So this is nice and wet now, and see it is clumping, but then I go like this and I dry it off a little bit, and then you can get it to wipe out. See that? And there you go. There you go. So it does the job. It's a very utilitarian brush. I would recommend it. A lot of people use mops dry. They use it very, very dry so that they can move the color around. Notice I had no color on this, and notice it moved that in the background. And there you go.
We'll remind everybody again, Amy, that all these tips are available on our website, and if you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, we share those. We share new product development. We share the care tips, and also we do these live events every couple of weeks.
We have one Thursday.
Feature, yep, this Thursday. In fact, we have one at 12 noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific, and we feature different products, different media, how to select the right brush for the right media. So all that's available to you all at Silver Brush Ltd on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, so we've got I'm looking back for her name. Give me just a moment. Noliana asked about, and I think this probably has to do more with the brush style. She didn't specify what medium she was using, but I think just from some of what you've gone over and she may have missed when we were talking about the 88 brushes. She asked what brushes would be best for floral painting. Can you reiterate some of just kind of what the brushes that you've covered, kind of what ones would be best?
Let me just make something absolutely clear. Floral painting can be done in oils, it can be done in acrylics, it can be done in watercolor. It's up to you what you want to do. It's the shape, something like the cat's tongue in both the black velvet as well as the silver silk 88. Those would make a wonderful floral painting brushes. Notice the difference in the size and the material. But it really depends on the medium that you're working with. If you're using acrylics, we have other brushes that, I use the Manza for the acrylics. I would use silver silk, but I would not use black velvet if you're using acrylics. It really depends on the medium that you're using.
Perfect.
That's the answer for that.
Okay, good. So I think I'm going back through and just making sure that we don't have any other question. You've been really good at kind of catching them right as people asked. Oh, here was one that I answered, but I think I just want to verify with you that this is the correct answer to the question. Someone asked about the black velvet brushes and would those work with alcohol inks. I said that although they would probably work, I would be worried about the alcohol drying the natural hair in the brushes and potentially damaging it. I just want to verify that that's probably the correct
Personally,
answer.
I would not use them with anything that's alcohol. I do feel that it would dry it out and I think would make it brittle. But a lot of times people do use them in inks. If they don't have alcohol in it, I don't see why you can't use black velvet. I really don't. I've actually used them in ink and they've worked very, very well. They really have. I tried to find ink the other day when I was out shopping at Jerry's Artarama, and I forgot that I wanted to go down a different aisle and I left before I bought them. I wanted to buy more ink so that I could demonstrate today with you inks. They work very nicely with inks. They really do, because they're very absorbent and it's like a little sponge. So you really need something to get it on the surface. But if it has alcohol in it, I think it's going to be a problem. I really do. If you do use anything with alcohol with any of these brushes, you can actually get it to get moist again. If you could just use some hair conditioner. I shouldn't say that. You're an art supply store and you probably want to sell something. But if you could put some conditioner on it and just keep it in there, and it'll probably make it nice and moist again. So, but try not to use anything with an alcohol base. I wouldn't recommend it for natural hair. I think it'll give you problems that you didn't want to have. And then you'll blame us.
Tina also asked, we got one more question. I think we've answered literally everything else, and everybody has also said thank you so much. They've learned a lot on this, and they're
Good.
really excited to try some of the different lines. One of the Tinas, we've got many Tinas that watched, asked about acrylic inks. What would be the best brush of the ones that you featured, or brush lines that would work best with acrylic inks?
Acrylic inks and walnut inks. So we were just working with another artist, and what I found that really works beautifully, we have two brushes that works really well with acrylic inks and with walnut inks, and that's the Silver White and the Silver Silk 88. It just absorbed a lot and it held the color really well. I'm sorry I didn't bring the medium here, but it really does hold so much color that I would really recommend the Silver White. I'd also recommend the Silver Silk 88. They both work very, very nicely. And I believe with acrylic inks, they both work very well. And by the way, you can put alcohol on here, and alcohol will take the pigment off of the brush if it's bothering you. But make sure you wash it out very, very quickly. But it should take the pigment out of the brush like that. But in terms of inks, like a walnut ink, acrylic ink, I believe that the Silver White and the Silver Silk 88 will be perfect for you.
Okay, good. And I will say, just from my personal experience, I have a Silver White that I want to say is probably, my oldest son is 23, and I started in acrylics, from transition from oils to acrylics after he painted across one of my paintings.
Right. When he was little. When he was
Yes,
little.
he was 1.5, but I was like, let's switch to something I can fix.
Right.
But the brush is literally one of the first acrylic brushes I ever bought. It is still, and I'm very nuts about cleaning my acrylic brushes, but it is still functioning as an acrylic brush. I've worn the hair down after all these years, but it's one of my favorite brushes. So,
You really
just
get a lot
say,
of,
they're fantastic.
for your buck. Yeah, you get a lot of bang for your buck with these. You really do. I mean, it just keeps on ticking. It's as simple as that. Walnut ink, acrylic ink, definitely Silver White, definitely Silver Silk 88.
Wonderful. Well, everybody is saying thank you very much
You're more than welcome.
for
Please
this.
join us. We're having a Facebook Live on Thursday. You're welcome to come. It's Thursday at noon Eastern Time.
Okay, wonderful.
And
So
also, I always recommend Jerry's Artarama because I've been dealing with Jerry's folks since, I don't know, 1980 or something crazy like that. And one of the first customers I had when I started Silver Brush Ltd was Jerry's Artarama, and I will always be extremely loyal to them.
that's wonderful. Thank
Aw.
you. We appreciate.
You're welcome.
Everybody's over here is going, "Aw, that's awesome." All right. Well, thank you so much.
you.
Next week, guys, we are doing we've got Art of the Carolinas coming up, the virtual Art of the Carolinas this year. From November 9th to the 14th, we're going to be doing our virtual classes. And I've had a lot of people ask a lot of questions about it. So we're having Sharon on next week, who is the grand dame of Art of the Carolinas. And one of the questions people have asked is 3 hours really enough for a workshop? Well, let me tell you, after teaching 3-hour classes or 4 3-hour classes last fall, you can, well, I'm a taskmaster. They can learn a lot in 3 hours with me, but we're going to see just how much you can learn just in a single hour. And Sharon and I will answer all of your questions regarding how kind of virtual AOC works. And so make sure everybody bring your questions about that. We're going to be doing gel plate printing. So if you're curious about any of the supplies and you want to get anything and play along with us next week, that episode is JL174. You can put that in the space bar on jerrysartarama.com, and that will pull up the supplies for you to get to participate. So Dee and Silver and Warren Flax, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you coming on. And I know that this episode, especially, it'll be loaded to YouTube overnight.
Okay.
People are going to watch this over and over because it was so much information. And I think it was just really gave everybody a fantastic brush education. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
You
Thanks for
guys
having
take care.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys for coming, and
All right,
we'll
take
see
care.
everybody next week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.